Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. For the grammar lesson, we're going to do demonstrative pronouns, which is lesson 18 and 19 in the grammar textbook for the course. So, the ismul ishara or asma'ul ishara are basically in the simplest form. They are things that distinguish between things that are close and things that are far. It doesn't have to be far and near in necessary in distance only. So, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَاب, for example, there are a lot of, as you probably heard from many scholars who you've listened to, explain ذَلِكَ الْكِتَاب. Why is it that is the book, not this is the book? I mean, this in the Quran. So again, lawh mahfuz versus respect and all that. So you guys are familiar with the tafsir of being far in importance or far in distance and all that. But just in a simplistic manner, it's just far and near. Okay, so that's what we'll focus on. In English, there are only four words: this, that, these, and those. Because there's no masculine, feminine, and there's no dual in English. In Arabic, it's this masculine, this feminine, this dual, these plural. So there's six for each category. So there's six near words and six far words instead of two. But many of them you're already familiar with, so it's not that difficult, inshallah. So near. These are the words that are bolded and hopefully underlined, except in the last two ayahs. So let me do that here. So these are all the near asma'ul ishara. So hada is masculine singular. Hada kitabun anzalna. This book, anzalna, we revealed. Qul hadhihi sabili. Say this is my path. Feminine. Hadhihi. Qalu in hadhani. This is dual. These two, lasahiran, referring to Musa and Harun. In hadain lasahiran. These two, masculine. Ihda ibnatay hataini. When Musa alayhi salam went to Madian to work for Shuaib alayhi salam, the contract was work for as dowry or something similar. So ihda ibnatay hataini, one of my two daughters, hataini, these two feminine versus hadani, and this can also be hadaini, and this can also be hatani. So it can be with the alif or the yat, but it's just like mu'minun versus mu'minin or mu'minan versus mu'minain, the same thing. So that depends on majroor versus marfu versus mansub. So that will cover when we do those things. But again, just to be complete. Ha'ulai is the same for both these and these. Okay, so masculine is ha'ulai, feminine is ha'ulai. Ha'ulai ahda min alladhina amanu sabila. All of these are examples from the Quran. So try to memorize this. Again, this is just like the pronouns. You just have to keep going over and over and memorizing them. Okay, there's not really that much concept. It's just the same way you use it in English. These are such and such, or these people do such and such a thing. The far ones now. Again, this is the confusing one with ذَلِكُمَا and ذَلِكُمْ. So I have a couple of those examples. First is simple. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ, the one that we're all familiar with. ذَلِكَ, that book, there is no doubt in it. That book, there is no doubt in it. ذَلِكُمَا مِمَّا عَلَّمَنِي رَبِّي, that is from what Allah or my Rabb taught me. But again, the kuma sometimes has to do with the audience. Kum and kuma. Okay, but they're both singular because of the va. This is singular. Referring back. When I ask you what does this refer back to, it's going to refer back to one thing. So it's not in those. وَفِي ذَلِكُمْ بَلَاءٌ is not in those there's bala. In that there is bala. Okay, in that which I have just showed you, basically, وَفِي ذَلِكُمْ بَلَاءٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ عَظِيمٌ. ذَلِكُمُ اللَّهُ رَبُّكُمْ. That is Allah, Rabbukum, your Lord. فَذَانِكَ. Again, I forgot to underline and bold it, but this is the dual form now. Dual form of that. What was the dual form of this? هَذَانِ. The dual form of that, dhanika. The feminine form never comes in the Quran, so we don't have to really go over it. But it's uh, instead of that, it's with ta, tanika. Okay, and I might have forgotten tilka. So tilka is the feminine form of singular. Tilka, tilka rusul. Okay, tilka rusulu faddalna ba'dahum ala ba'd. Rusul is not feminine, but is grammatically a broken plural. Okay, so that's sort of the reason, I guess. Okay, faddalna. Okay, so sorry about that. Tilka, the feminine form of dhalika. Dhanika, tanika, and ulaika. Do I not have ulaika either? Okay. Ulaika ala hudam. I think I have it on the next slide, but you know ulaika. Ulaika ala hudam min rabbihim. All of these end with ka or kuma or kum. Very rarely, but usually they end with ka. Why? Because it's something far. You, second person, right? Ka is always for the second person thing. Second person is over there. First person is over here. So all of it, that's the easy way to remember. All of them end with ka. Okay. So just put ulaika on here too. Now one thing I want to go over is mubtada khabar again, but this time in context of ism ishara. When you have ism ishara, what is mubtada, what is khabar? In the most complicated concept in this is that there are some words in the middle that are not part of mubtada or khabar, technically. Okay, so this only happens obviously in jumla ismiya. That's the only time you have mubtada khabar. Everyone agree? Make sure you agree. If you're listening, nod your head. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. It starts with a ism ishara, so it's jumla ismiya. Now al-kitab, you can think of it this way. If you didn't have al-kitab, you would still have a complete sentence. ذَلِكَ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. That there's no doubt in it. Versus that book, there's no doubt in it. So this kitab is called this, badal. Okay? Al-kitab is badal or apposition. You don't have to remember the term. Just because a big word, don't get confused. You don't get confused because there's a big word. It's just all it means is that there's an extra word that can be omitted just to clarify what you're talking about. It's the same thing, exact same thing in English. This is, compare these two sentences. This is for you all versus this food is for you all. This food is for you all. Here you have an apposition also. This food. You can say without the food, but just to clarify what you're talking about. It could be this book, this food, this recipe, whatever. This food is for you. This is for you. Both of them make sense, but one has an apposition in it. So that's all. That's all. So the mubtada is just the ism ishara usually, 99% of the time. The rest of the sentence will be khabar. Okay. So usually the apposition will start with alif lam. That's the easy way to remember. Another example is here. هذه الشجرة كبيرة. This is not from the Quran. I just made this up. هذه is the mubtada. It's also the ism ishara. Ash-shajara is an optional word, apposition, badal, whatever you want to call it. Okay. This tree is big. You can just say this is big also, right? You can say that's big. This is big. But if you don't want to talk like a 4-year-old, you add a apposition. This tree is big. Okay. Ulaika ala hudam min rabbihim. This there you don't need an apposition because it's already talked about that before. These people are already been talked about. Alladhina yu'minuna bil ghaibi, etc., etc. The first ruku of Surah Baqarah, and then ulaika. Those are on. So this is without the apposition. An example without the badal. Ulaika ala hudam min rabbihim. Those are on guidance from their Lord. Right? Mubtada. Those. Then you put your R. Remember the R and the is can tell you the difference between mubtada and khabar. Ulaika ala. Those are on guidance from their Lord. And then just because it starts with alif lam doesn't mean it's an apposition. So be careful. Ulaika alladhina laysa lahum fil akhirati illa an-nar. Okay? Ulaika is mubtada. Alladhina is khabar. Those are those who. Remember, those are those who. A lot of people got confused about that because alladhina means those who. But it's two very different concepts. Can you see that? This is ism ishara, those, as in those, far away. Versus alladhina is a relative pronoun we'll do next week, but it's a grammatical structure really. It doesn't have any connotation of near, far, concept, distance, or otherwise. So those are those who fil akhirati illa. Okay? Laysa lahum fil akhirati illa. That's from the Quran. So here's ulaika. So add this to that slide before that we had for the far objects. Ulaika means those, far away. Okay? So inshallah we'll answer any questions, but that's it for the grammar lesson, fairly straightforward. Next week inshallah we'll do Ism Mawsul, and for those who are wondering what happened to the last ayah, we only did 4 ayahs today. The 2 separate slides were marked as 2 separate ayahs, but they were the same ayah. So inshallah we'll do the next ayah next week. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.